achieve the fame that anyone else did. I see. Pardon?
We love you anyway.
Thank you. I do appreciate that, believe me, especially at my age. I seem to have inherited the Blackmoor campaign, and I'll get into that too. But before I do, I don't know, well, I know two people here. I don't know the rest of you. I will be introducing yourselves to me individually because we have to do something. My first question is, why are you here? And I mean that exactly. Nope, that's the kind of answer I want. Is it because of Kevin? I mean, is there anyone else that just heard about the game and decided to show up?
I wanted to meet you.
Okay. So the reason I'm asking is, are you here because it's just another Dungeons and Dragons game, or because it's a Blackmoor game, or because you were bored at home, or, I mean, okay. Another Dungeons and Dragons game?
We wanted to check it out. We wanted to see
What Blackmoor is all about?
Yes.
Okay. Well, that's good, because this isn't exactly Dungeons and Dragons. You won't be using those rules. You won't need those rules. Matter of fact, you're not going to be using any rules. This is the way we started. This is the way the game was. Well, you might ask, all right, Meyer, we don't have any stinking rules. Well, I say, in that case, we will have one rule, and that is, this is a anger-free, board-free zone. I don't want anyone to be bored. I don't want anyone to get angry or stressed. You shouldn't, with the way that I play this game. Sometimes the dice get the better of you. Don't sweat it. We'll work it out. The number one thing about Blackmoor is that it was the original. Nothing like it ever existed before, so it was invented as we went along. And that's the way we do this game. We invent it as we go along. The reason why I'm ending up doing this game is because Arneson ran the Blackmoor game campaign, whatever you want to call it, since 1971. Every year, even when he moved out of state, he made sure to show up right here at the source in his old location and ran a Blackmoor game. And I always showed up there to say hi, David, just thinking I'm just going to show up, say hi while he signs autographs, and that's it. And he always roped me into playing the game. And this continued right up until he passed away in 2009. Now, the game was in May because the first archive that we have of a game was May 22nd, 1971. We know that a game was played then because it was in the corner of the table, the newsletter he put out for another campaign. So every May he showed up at the source and he played the game. He passed away in April of 2009, which shouldn't have been a surprise to us. He was very sick with the cancer, but he had every intention of putting on a game in May that year, just as he always did. And we decided that game was going to happen anyway. David McGarry was the chosen person to run the game. He had the original ping pong table. He had the original castle. I got a panic call from David Wesley a week before the game saying, McGarry can't do it. Bob, can you do it? I hadn't even gamed for years. I had stopped playing Blackmoor, except for the annual game, many years early. I didn't even have the rules anymore for Dungeons and Dragons. So of course I said yes. And I thought, what have I got myself into now? Okay, well, this is a game to commemorate Blackmoor. What was Blackmoor? Blackmoor was original. It was done to be different from every other game. David had been running a Napoleonics miniatures game for quite some time, for years.
There's a die that just rolled under your...
I got it.
I don't know whose die it is, but I rolled out.
And
Thank you so much.
he had been getting tired of the fact that there was a very good set of rules for the game. Rules upon rules upon rules, and everyone was trying to subvert the rules. All the players were looking for advantages, for whatever they could do. And David Wesley came up with something that came out of that campaign, and that is that each player had a country, and as we were wont to do, we tried to conquer the other countries. And usually it was easier if you had an alliance. Well, they wanted to cement these alliances like they did historically, and that is by marrying off a member of the royal family to a member of the royal family that they're allying with. So they made up these charts of all the royal families in the country. No surprise after all the things they were doing for the armies. And they started talking about, well, my son is the bravest, most charismatic person ever. You want to marry your daughter to my son. Prove it. Okay, grab dice, write down some characteristics, roll the dice. You see? Charismatic. Okay, fine. And Wesley had an idea. You know, we're doing all this stuff where we have individuals now with characteristics, but the royal family's not a whole lot of fun. Why don't I do a game where we have just regular people? You can be a mayor, you can be the colonel of the local regiment, you can be a student at the university. He set his game in a small village in Austria during the Napoleonic era. And he had the guys all sign up. He had it all figured out. Now, he's the guy who originally came up with the rules for that Napoleonic game, so he had rules. But these rules were basically for himself. Everyone was to play themselves. This was different. This was not something that we normally did. And he had victory conditions. He thought, by gum, we're going to play this game, we're going to have fun, and we're going to have someone who wins. That tanked real fast because he had war gamers there. War gamers, in our group, you could put us in a horseshoe valley with steep granite walls and only one exit with treasure at the end of the exit. And what are we going to do? We're going to look for caves. We're going to try to climb the walls. We're going to do everything but go through that bloody exit. That's too easy. So all the people were doing what they wanted to do. And he lost control. He figured he was going to control the game easily. He lost control of the game in the first half hour. I mean, he had two people shot. He would call them out individually to talk to them, to tell them. Each had their own victory conditions on what they had to achieve. He had a couple guys come to him and say, we want to fight a duel. David, of course, gave a very intelligent response of, what? A duel? That's not in the game. I don't care. We want to fight a duel. Okay, grab some dice and sit down. And that's what happened. And at the end of the game, he thought it was a flop. Complete flop. I mean, no one was doing what he wanted them to do. No one was fulfilling the victory conditions. They weren't even really aware of their conditions. And he thought, that's the end of that. Within a week, he had people coming to him asking him when he's going to do it again. And he asked them, are you crazy? No, it was fun. Oh, why? Well, we had fun. I mean, there were duels fought, there were people intriguing with other people, alliances were formed. It was fun. And David had his light bulb moment. Let people be what they want to be. And he did it again. He went off in the army in real life. Dwayne Jenkins inherited the game. He took it out of Austria and he put it in a town in New Mexico, in the old Wild West. So, of course, we had Pancho Villa showing up in the whole thing. That was fun. Well, Arneson was watching all of this with keen interest. He was thinking, gee, you know, there's something here. but I still want to get away from rules. How can I do that? Well, he had his light bulb moment when he watched a movie marathon on television of science fiction and fantasy movies. He said, no one's going to look up what a dragon can do, or what a troll can do, or what an imp can do. That's what I say they can do. And thus Blackmoor started. Now, my introduction to the game started out really badly. Couldn't be worse. Because he had to come up with something. There had to be some rules. So he tried using some rules that were out on the market. Didn't work. And I can tell you they didn't work because of the famous Troll Under the Bridge game. I was there. For some reason, some people felt they had to go near the bridge. The troll came out and started munching on them. I was the hero. That's what he actually called me, the hero. He said, Bob, at the beginning of the game, he said, Bob, you're the hero. He had me grab some six-sided dice and roll them. That's how many hit points I had. And he said, you're going to save everyone. Well, I saw this troll munching on people, and ta-ta-da, to the rescue. I go up, chop away at the troll. Nothing happened. Bad die rolls. Troll eventually took notice of me, turned around, dead. One blow. Good die roll. I told David what I thought of the die rolls. I told him what I thought of the rules. I told him what I thought of the game, and that was the end of that. I didn't have to tell him because he realized those rules weren't going to work. He came up with his own. He wasn't going to use any printed rules. And there was an advantage to that. And that advantage is that when we were playing the game, I eventually did get back into it. When we were playing the game, he didn't give us any rules. He told us, just be yourselves, guys. Be reasonable. And if you're not, I'll let you know. And letting us know was very, very hard on us. So we learned real quick. We did what was reasonable. And that's the way it was from 1971 until 1974. And Dungeons and Dragons were printed. Now they came out of the fact that Arneson met up with Gary Gygax at Gen Con. Gen Con immediately saw the possibilities of this game. He loved it. He wanted to publish it. That's what Arneson kind of had in mind, so he said, sure, go ahead. He gave him all of his notes. Gygax published the game, and all of us players were going, yes, we have the rules. And we took those booklets and were feverishly going through them, looking up all the different things so we could figure out what we could do. Well, Arneson is too clever for that. He took care of us anyway. But the point of it is that this was free form. This was new. This was so-called role-playing. This was fantasy adventuring. This was no rules. This was invent as you went along. Fast forward to 2009, I'm faced with a dilemma. I'm going to be putting on a Blackmoor game. I don't have the rules. I haven't played it for many, many years. What am I going to do? I'm going to go back to the roots. I'm going to do what David did. I'm going to come up with basically my own set of rules, my own ideas. I'm going to improvise as I go along. I'm doing it with guys who've been playing this for 40 years, so they understand, and they all had fun. It worked. Okay, fast forward another half dozen years, and I get a call. There's this guy who wants to do a documentary. He wants to come up to the Twin Cities and film all of us. Okay. He wants to film you. Okay. He came over to the house, he filmed me. I figured end of story. No. A few months go by, and I get another call. Bob.
Oh, look, a puppy.
Is coming up to the Twin Cities again. Okay. He wants us to do a Blackmoor game. Okay. So I told him that you'll do a Blackmoor game for him. Okay. So they all show up at my house, and I improvised. I added a few added details into the game. I ended up with some 20 people in that adventure. And it worked. Fantastic. I even had people playing in the game who had never played Dungeons and Dragons, had only heard of it. I had the film crew jump in as people left because they had to go home. They took over the characters. We never finished the adventure, so the next year I called people up and I said, hey, we're going to finish the adventure. You interested? Yes, they showed up. We finished the adventure. So, based on that limited experience, I think you guys may have fun. I hope so. The worst thing that can happen is for you to be bored. I'd like a critique at the end of the game of what you think. That's a very important part of this to me. You guys probably don't care. But I am planning on continuing Blackmoor. I will have the game every year like David did when he came back from out of town. And we'll see where it goes from here.
So how flexible or